Good afternoon, or good evening, or good morning, depending on where you are across the globe. Welcome to the 28th episode of SADS Facebook Live. I can't believe it's been that long that we've been together since this thing called COVID-19 came to our land. So wherever you are across the globe, thanks for joining us. I'm Mike Ackerman. I'm a genetic cardiologist here at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. And on behalf of Alice Laura, the CEO of the Sudden Arrhythmia Death Syndromes, the SADS Foundation, we welcome you. I have the privilege of serving as president of the board alongside Alice. And so thanks for joining us. And I'm delighted to be joined by two special people. Second time for Richard. So I'm welcoming Richard back from Atlanta. He's an RN there at the Sibley Heart Center and program project manager of Project S.A.V.E. and really happy to have Rachel Flores with us. Rachel is a dear friend. I've known her for many, many years now. She's an RN in career. She's a mom, and she's a mom of a family with CPVT, catecholaminergic polymorphic ventricular tachycardia. So we're going to get a mom's perspective. We're going to get a nurse's perspective. We're going to get two nurses' perspective on this special month of SADS Safe Schools. So Richard, Rachel, welcome to SADS Facebook Live.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Before we get started with our topic of today, and those of you who are joining us, we may get a chance to take your questions, so put them in, make them short, so that I can glance over and grab them and present them to Rachel and Richard and myself. But we still have COVID-19. We're going to coexist with this virus for quite some time. 26 million plus in the worldwide have it or have had the virus. Tragically, 870,000 deaths. In the United States, a week ago, we crossed the 6 million mark for cases, 187,000 deaths. Yesterday, we had 44,000 cases. In our county here in Minnesota, Olmsted County, we just crossed 2,000 cases and it had 25 deaths. So at places of centers of excellence, we can be expecting that the death rate from COVID-19 in the United States is around 1%. So stay doing all the right things. Remember, put on the mask. We're back to school. Some schools are masks on, others aren't. Here at Mayo Clinic, it is I mask, you mask, we all mask together. So those of you who have colleagues, friends who are anti-maskers, tell them, get over it. Just put on the mask. They work. Do the social distancing. Wash your hands. Wash your hands. It works. We can stay, and we need to try to stay corona-free for as long as we can. We're not afraid of corona. Remember, one of my favorite friends on SADS Facebook Live likes the hashtag refuse to fear, and we do refuse to fear. So that's the reminder of the COVID-19 pandemic. But now to what we really want to spend time on is this month is what the Sudden Arrhythmia Death Syndrome Foundation calls SADS Safe Schools Month. And it's not about going back to school and keeping it safe from COVID-19. We can talk about that, but it's really about all of our families who are at potential risk of tragedy from a sudden arrhythmia death syndrome, whether it's long QT, whether it's CPVT, which Rachel will talk about, whether it's Brugada Syndrome. What do we need to have our schools to have in place for our families, just like the schools have a strategy in place for that peanut allergy kid who might be susceptible to a life-threatening reaction from peanut exposure? What do our children with SADS conditions deserve? And so we're going to talk about it, and I couldn't have two better people than Richard or Rachel to talk about it. Rachel, tell us about you. Give our audience a little bit of a feel of who Mrs. Rachel Flores is, from career, nurse, mom, CPVT. What say you?
Okay, well, what say me? I've been nursing for 25 years, and I do credit some of that to helping figure out what's going on with Bella, because our journey began July 20th, 2012. And ironically, Facebook shared a picture with me today that 8 years ago today, Bella was going to school, second grade, and her little brother was going into kindergarten. And that pink little Hello Kitty purse she's wearing is holding her Holter monitor. So that changed my career path a little bit. Became more focused on what's going on with my little girl and her heart. So weeks before that picture was taken, she had her first cardiac event. And fortunately, the hallmark rhythm was captured on that Holter monitor, and she was diagnosed with CPVT. So we are so very fortunate. And I think that as a mom, when I saw that picture this morning, I remembered the feeling of helplessness that I had and the fear of letting her out of my sight. I remember the doctors had said to me, just make sure she doesn't run, skip, or jump. And I said, she's 7. That's going to be like, just walk around carefully because you don't know what triggers. And I thought, oh my goodness. So I was terrified and feeling that hopelessness and knowing that she needs to go to school and learn and be social and have a quote unquote normal life. What do we do to make that happen? How can we empower her as a child and those around her to be heroes and not victims? So that began my next career role. And
That's-
SADS really helped me with that for sure.
Well, Rachel, thanks a lot. And we're going to get into what has the SADS Foundation done to help you, Bella, and children like her all across the world to have a strategy at the school. And we'll get there soon. But before we do, Richard, let everybody or remind everybody, in most of the SADS Facebook Live, we've had 96,000 views, Richard, since we launched in February. And a lot of those views was your and my program on hands-only chest compressions, and they're still doing the stay alive, just like you taught them. So you were a hit back then, but remind them of who Richard Lamphier is.
So I'm a registered nurse for about 35 years, and I'm the program manager of Project S.A.V.E. for the past 7 years. The position came open, Dr. Robert Campbell here at Sibley Heart Center, and Allison Ellison started the program in 2004. Allison retired and the position came open, and I thought, what a position to apply for. And the reason why I applied for it, back in high school, I had a teammate that passed away running labs. Looking back at it, he probably had Marfan syndrome just with some of the characteristics, but I'll always remember the desperate look in our coach's face of doing compression. And I thought, what a way to end my nursing career if maybe we could have a different outcome than what my coach had back then. And it's really been an amazing journey since taking that position 7 years ago.
Wow. Well, it's great having you there. And you mentioned a dear friend of both of ours, Dr. Robert Campbell, who is also a member of the board of the Sudden Arrhythmia Death Syndrome Foundation. And he and I have been side by side. And Robert is actually one of the people who, in our field, I admire and respect the most. So, Robert, if you're listening out there, hello there, my friend. So you felt helpless back then with your friend. Rachel expressed feeling helpless with what on earth is this going to look like for Bella. In what ways did the SADS Foundation step in the gap when we created this SADS Safe Schools Month awareness? But more than having a month to be aware, since it's September and back to school, actually putting together some elements that schools ought to have. What are some of those critical elements that makes a school a SADS safe school? Richard?
Well, I think that there's about 3 or 4 steps that we talk about. One, the first one is an all staff awareness. We think anybody could be the witness to cardiac arrest. Anybody can save a life. So we really talk about what does a cardiac arrest look like. We present that at a staff meeting or back to school meeting. We talk about the things that will throw people off. And we know one of those is seizure-like activity. And so we say it's a cardiac arrest until proven otherwise. And then what we talk about next is do you have a first responder team? So who's trained in CPR and using the AED? And then we also talk about an emergency action plan. who's going to get the AED, who's going to take it to the scene, who, where are AEDs, and we look at that. Here in Georgia, the law says that all schools with interscholastic sports has to have one AED. So we know that eliminates elementary schools from being required to do it. So we bring the awareness to the schools, and we've never had an issue of not getting an AED in a school once we brought the awareness.
Great. And Rachel, what were some of the things that were missing in your school when you discovered CPVT for Bella? And how easy was it to get them SADS safe or SADS aware to your satisfaction? Were there kind of challenges and obstacles that you had to overcome? Because I'm sure if you've had them, many of our SADS families out there have had them, because I've heard of a lot of obstacles. What ones were some of the ones that you encountered and overcame?
Definitely. First of all, our school wasn't equipped with AEDs at all at the time. So that was an initial challenge, was to get those AEDs in there and then start the training. So we were able, fortunately, to get AEDs, and like Richard said, more accessible now. There are a lot of programs and foundations that will assist you to get these AEDs in the school. So that's almost becoming a non-issue now. So at the time, we did not have AEDs, and the teachers were afraid, and I was afraid. So we really needed the resources that SADS can provide with the advocacy and training tools and the care plans. They just really help to facilitate an ease. And once you have the tools in your toolbox, so they say, the fear goes away. So biggest challenge was getting AEDs on board and having the school be scared enough to be responsible, but not so scared that she should stay home. So it's kind of a bit of a finesse of a dance that you have to do, because you want the fear to be real, because the condition is invisible. So that part was also challenging.
Richard, I'm wondering that, one of the things that I've often told our families is that if I've taken care of them well and have neutralized the threat as best I know how, that if we equip that school with a SADS safe program, and if we equip our own patient, my patient, with an AED, the odds are overwhelmingly tilted that AED will never be used on my patient, but it'll instead be used on somebody with an unknown condition, the teacher, the janitor, the grandparent coming for Grandparents' Day, so forth and so on. You think I'm being accurate in what I've been saying, or what's been the real experience on the ground as to when these AEDs in the SADS safe schools are getting used? Who are they getting used on?
I think you're absolutely correct. And, the AEDs are being used on the adults and some children's, but when you look at the number of children versus the number of adults in a school, and you look at how often an AED is used, it's usually on the adult, a teacher, a coach, a visitor. I always like to talk about on Grandparents' Day, we had a grandparent that came in, went into cardiac arrest. The team went into action, got the AED, placed it on Grandpa, but what a different story, and saved his life. And what a different story that is. Grandpa came to visit me at school, went to the hospital, and he never came home.
Yeah.
Grandpa came to visit me at school, got sick, he went to the hospital, and Grandpa came back home. And so that's what we really talk about. And who's it going to be used on? And I always think of Dr. Campbell telling a story. He's in front of the Georgia High School Association, all the coaches and athletic directors and things like that. And, last day going over all these recommendations and new guidelines and new rules from the High School Association. And he's up there talking about children having cardiac arrest and telling them, it's not very likely that it's going to happen. And then when he said, but you know what? It's more likely to happen to you. And he always talks about how they sat up in their chair and said, what do you say? And, so that's really what we talk about, but we do it for the children, to make sure for the children. And I always like to say the side effect is that we've had adults that have been saved as well.
Yeah, it's so true. And as some of the comments are coming in, want to just welcome all of you and thank you everywhere from Virginia, Alabama, and one of my favorite countries, Spain. Hello, Raquel.
Hello.
So welcome. You know, in terms of that reality that even though I know my patient's at risk, and even though Rachel knows her daughter is at risk, but that we've neutralized that threat, how did you have to deal though with Rachel with, even though that's true, the school system and the teachers are nevertheless freaked out about your daughter, about our SADS child, and then treats them in a way that can have its own negative repercussions? How did you help talk the structure, the school system down from the inappropriate level of anxiety being assigned to specifically your Bella? Because I think that's something, Richard, I'll have you comment on as well, that there tends to be an excessive anxiety about the SADS child when we create these SADS safe schools. What did you encounter for how they might have treated or reacted to your Bella when they found out that she has this thing called CPVT?
Well, we all reacted with fear initially. As I said earlier, we're 8 years in, so this conversation wouldn't have happened 8 years ago because I would have been a puddle somewhere, very afraid. So the fear is definitely real. And like I said, you want the school to be fearful so they take it seriously, because to look at her, you or any of these SADS children, you wouldn't necessarily recognize that something is going on. There's not often a disfigurement, that you can see. So you want the fear to be real, but not so scary. So it's just really education, making sure that they know she's protected as long as she's on her medications, and the care plans really help facilitate that with boundaries of what she can and cannot do. And I think mostly teaching the child themselves to advocate for themselves is huge, because she has to know, or he has to know, his own boundaries and what he can and cannot do. So that speaks volumes for the child, to be able to advocate for themselves. And just knowing that if Bella, for instance, had a hard time with being able to share with other people, especially meeting new friends, but still wanting to be able to go and do activities with the schools, field trips, etc., but not wanting everyone to know. So we really pushed the fact that complete transparency has to exist in order for you to be able to do all the wonderful things that you want to do. So she's come a long way with accepting that. And I can say from 2nd grade through 8th, I was the mom that was on every field trip because they didn't want her off the school property without me. So I got to do a lot of fun things.
Yeah, I will come back to that because that's a really important point, this whole field trip business. And I want to come back to you on how you navigated that. But before we do, Richard, what things have you learned and maybe would help the families that want to make sure the school is SADS safe, without, and having them realize that this is just a good thing to do, period, without assigning excessive panic about that specific child who's been tagged as having the SADS condition?
I think the real important thing is what we talked about earlier, is this is a total school SADS safe school. It's for everybody in the school. It's for the people that we don't know about, the undiagnosed patients, the adults that are at risk for sudden cardiac arrest. And so what we'll do is go with the families, and really what Rachel was saying is taking the fear out of that. And I really think the education part is taking the fear out of that. I can think of a school that we went into and talked to the principal and the staff, and they had one AED in the school, which was a good start, but they thought they needed another one in the hallway that student was in, which I thought, well, that's good, but let's kind of move it over to this side so other people could get to it as well. But they thought they wanted to be a little bit more prepared in case anything was to happen to that student. So what the principal did is, for 25 cents, you could wear a hat, and they did that 3 times to raise enough money to buy that additional AED. So I think the awareness and taking the fear out of it, and really doing the training, and then part of that training is with that emergency action plan, we have them practice it.
Yeah, some really important points. And so it's very timely to come back to you, Rachel, because Carrie from Virginia, and hi, Carrie, she's telling and sharing with us that her daughter, I think it's daughter Delaney, I love that name, that their 504 plan, and maybe you could just remind people what a 504 plan is, but that 504 plan for them required that the mom, Carrie, chaperone all trips as well, just like you. I'll just put out there, I have a real problem with that. I completely disagree with the schools that are requiring that, but I'm sure you got stuck doing that, and maybe it was a blessing to get stuck doing with that. But talk about, you know, the issue of being mandated that you are the mom, dad is the chaperone for that child, because it strikes me as odd that I'm pretty sure that the peanut allergy kid doesn't have it mandated that his mother or father is chaperoning on all of their trips. So I cry foul on that one.
I agree. It can be a significant crutch for your child's development and socially as well. Bella, okay, so the school, a 504 is designed to a child with a disability to provide them what they need for successful learning. It was my understanding from my school that they were fearful of going on field trips without me, but I kind of initially had that fear as well, so I was okay with going. It became later, as she was getting older, that I kind of wanted her to have that experience independently of mom or dad being there, and she desperately wanted it. So another route of doing that is having another parent that you trust, maybe teaching them how to use the AED, so you feel confident that another set of eyes knows how to take care of her, and she knows that there's someone there that she could trust if she needed to, outside of the teachers. So there are different routes of doing it, but absolutely, these kids need to really be empowered. Again, that's kind of when Bella was little, I was more afraid of her knowing what the condition could do, could kill you, you could die. Like, that's terrifying. To say it out loud as a mom, never mind to explain it to your child. But again, as she got older, and I think it was only a year later when she was 8, we started going to the SADS Foundation annual events. And I learned that empowering these kids to be heroes themselves takes the victim out of it. And the muscle memory that these kids are going to have from learning how to do CPR and use an AED, they're going to be saving people all over the world. So that's my take home, is that we really need to empower these kids to know that they can be heroes and not be fearful of their life. And then that will transcend to the staff.
And Richard, do you think it's fair that I would try to, like for Carrie and what she's sharing with us as it's coming in, and for Rachel, to empower the moms and dads and take a stand for their child and say, time out. You mandating that my child have her own AED that she carries by herself up all the stairs, walks it here and there, it is outrageous. And tell me what you're making the diabetic kids do for their plan, the seizure kids, epilepsy kids do for their children, the peanut allergy kids, the brittle asthmatic kids. And if you're doing something special, different, or more extreme for my child, time out, wrong answer. You need to do something different for our child. Would you agree?
I definitely agree. And I think it's really what Rachel's saying is we need to empower the teachers and coaches and faculty and staff at the schools to have the confidence that they know what to do in case of an emergency. And that's really what the whole SADS school is all about, is empowering those people that if something were to happen to one of the students, they know exactly what to do. They know how to notify the first responder team. They know that this building is going to have an emergency action plan that's specific to that building. And one of the things I like to talk about about the venue specific emergency action plan is, what's the name of that building? Do you know it as the old high school, which now is the Mary Smith Middle School? So the old staff knows it as an old high school, but they don't know it as Mary Smith Middle School. So those are some of the small things that we know to take the fear out of it, to have these people prepared, and to put that burden on a family. do you have to take off work because they're going to go to the aquarium? Do you have to do, those types? And it's not fair, exactly what you said, Dr. Ackerman, to put that on a cardiac family versus a diabetic or asthmatic family, or even, allergy family.
Yeah, and I think it's time, and I think the SADS has helped give a voice to that. I think the other thing that can help our I mean, because they are well intentioned, they're just afraid, is to just let them know that for the most part, for these conditions, we've got this. I mean, I tell all of our families, we advise an automatic external defibrillator, an AED, as safety gear for all of our children, not our adults, our children, with a SADS condition. Of about 600 children that I treat, half of the families don't have an AED by choice, half do. Of those who don't, none of them wish they had. And of those who do, we've had 4 AED rescue shocks in 4 children in 20 years. So this isn't something where the teachers need to be thinking, this aquarium field trip is the day, and then tomorrow the walk to the lunchroom is the day that it's going to happen. This needs to get across to them that this is an almost never scenario for my child. It might actually be for your janitor, but not for my child. But here is the drill that makes everyone safer on this campus. And I know that's been your rally cry, Richard, and Rachel. You had to do that on your own. Rich, I want to turn a little bit to a question of Project SAVE, because Kara shares a note. And Kara, I'm so sorry to hear about your son. Her 15-year-old son died from sudden cardiac arrest in Canada. Don't know why. And now they're working to get AEDs in all of their schools and public places. And that's a story and a chain reaction, Richard, that we tragically hear all too often as what becomes a family's mission after their own personal tragedy. Tell Kara about Project SAVE a little bit, and maybe some next steps that they can do to make that an effective mission of theirs, and to avoid some of the landmines and the mistakes that you guys have learned over the last 20 years of doing this.
Well, I think the biggest thing is to have advocates with you. Other families that may have children that are diagnosed with SAD conditions, but other advocates. And the advocates are really in the healthcare industry, because we've seen these cases, like their child's case that came to us as nurses. We know these things can happen, and we'll help out. Some of the nurses are happy to help out, to be part of your mission. And then the other part is, funding. So look at, like Rachel talked earlier, look at different foundations to help you fund, and then reach out to those foundations and ask, what did they learn when they were presenting, putting AEDs in schools. One of the things we have in the United States is Firehouse Subs. They have a huge grant program to fund AEDs in schools. So look for things like that in Canada. Who is there to help? And then really talk about the awareness. And we've never had an issue once we brought the awareness. And I think really, Dr. Ackerman, what you're talking about is it's safe for everybody. It's safe for your teachers. It's safe for your janitors. It's safe for your coaches. And I really think that's another part to emphasize, is this is for everybody. And that if a child does go down, we're going to have an AED there, and we're going to have a plan to use it. And so I think that the other part is, if you are donating AEDs, make sure you donate the whole AED package, to have a plan, to have a SAD safe school to go along with it.
Great. And I know Alice, our CEO, has put on the side for those who have joined us the link to find out about SAD safe schools, find out about Project SAVE and Heart Safe Schools, and what are the components for you all to be able to review. Rachel, what has satisfied you the most over these last 8 years since that Facebook 2012, Holter in her Hello Kitty purse? From then to now, what has encouraged you the most about the school system approaches, or just in general, that has been warm to a mother's heart?
Well, seeing you is always a highlight every year. I think that just having the camaraderie with other families, this is a very unique space, a safe space that you provide for us every year. And for the kids to also have that experience that they're not alone. There are other children that have these conditions that are rare and they're hard to talk about and hard to explain to someone that doesn't know. I can't tell you how many educated people I've talked to that says to me, well, Bella's going to grow out of it, right? And I just kind of like need that space that you guys provide annually. So that is a huge asset to any family who is struggling. The website has so much information and free downloads, and you're just there for us. And it's just amazing. And the awareness is really rolling out. There are so many foundations, like I was saying, and programs that are out there teaching people that heart safety is essential and easy, and we can save lives, all kinds of lives, and these kids can save lives. So it's so much better now than it was even just 8 years ago.
And I know I didn't plant that question for Rachel. She's just being too kind. And also, Richard, I full disclosure, I have no stock in Firehouse subs, but I do love their subs. They're really good. You mentioned ways to get an AED and for schools to get an AED. What about for the families? And I know that's really been a game changer that's made it easier for families to get AEDs, because part of the challenge has been we publish a paper showing that if I treat my patients right, they're never going to need an AED. So then the prescription device plan, equipment plan of insurance company says, not indicated, you don't need it because look at this paper. And yet it provides a tremendous peace of mind for some families, just like my fire extinguisher provides peace of mind. I know where it is in my house. I know how to pull the pin, aim, sweep, spray, or spray, sweep. I know how to use it. And so the AED families, they feel that. And what have been some ways that you are able to help families get an AED? I'll speak of one. We use a company called LifeSure. They're an advocacy organization where their mission is to help families with SADS conditions or genetic heart conditions that predispose to sudden death get an automatic external defibrillator. They do all the interference with the family's insurance company to try to get it appropriately reimbursed as it ought to be as safety gear. So I no stock in LifeSure. I haven't even met leadership there, but they do a flat out great job for my families to get one. What other resources have you seen to help families get their own AED, or that you use, Rachel, for your family? Richard, what have you found?
What I was going to say, I have no stock in LifeSure as well, but they're a great company. And I actually got an email this morning that one of our families had just gotten approved. And I don't remember when I sent that referral to LifeSure. So it wasn't last week. I know that. But that's how hard they worked on getting that family a home AED. And, to be able to do that, LifeSure is a great for our families. The other thing is, GoFundMe accounts. If you bring the awareness to family and friends or other foundations, we have a foundation here in Georgia that's willing to donate AEDs to families that need them. And so it's been a great asset for us to be able to reach out to that foundation and to be able to ask them to help us find an AED. But, there's some different ways of doing it. Again, LifeSure is a great company to work with. How hard they work to get those AEDs approved through the insurance companies. And then, private funding. We have some partners in the AED business that will give nonprofits and discounted price for the AED. So we'll work it any way we can to get an AED for a family that needs it or wants it.
Yeah. And Rachel, besides making sure a school has the AED drill and they know what to do if they find anybody, your Bella's teacher, the janitor, anybody, down, and they know how to pull the lever and activate the sudden cardiac arrest survival drill. And they get the AED applied quickly. They know which building it's in. They retrieve it. It's within 1-2 minutes away. They apply it. They push the shock button if instructed to do so. But more than the AED drill, what other things do you think it's critical that the school have a mindset about to be SADS safe?
Excellent question. So that's a perfect scenario. We hope that's how it happens if it does happen. One thing that we've instilled with the school, the elementary school, it's a K-8, and we do a heart safe field day every year. And we have paramedics come out, lifeguards, fire truck, EMTs, and we have different stations set up out in the field. It's a small school, so it's easy to do this. It's under 200 children. And we rotate the children out in session, 15 minutes sessions, and we do age-appropriate CPR AED training for the entire school. So that is the muscle memory I was talking about earlier about these kids. Once they graduate from this school, they've learned and seen what an AED is, how to use it, how to get for help, age appropriate. Kindergartners know to call 911 or get an adult. They know where the AEDs are, they don't know what they do, and all the way up to 8th grade. So when you walk through that school, you've got 200 people that know where an AED is. That's pretty profound, So I think that trying to get the children involved at any age is a huge asset for heart safety.
Richard, do you think it would be a great idea if we would eventually have, as a high school graduation requirement, that all graduates would know how to do hands-only CPR, chest compression only CPR, and know how to push the AED button, so that we create an army of first responders out there?
That'd be a great idea, and it's really our goal, throughout, all the people working in this space to get that. I think we're up to 39 states that require CPR training for a high school graduation.
Well, we're up to 39 states. That's fantastic.
And so, and to your point, I just read something where less than 3% of the nation's population is trained in CPR every year. And survival rates of out-of-hospital cardiac arrest for all ages is at 5 to 6%. So, just think if we could double.
We're back.
Get all those, those first responders that you talk about on graduation, and what Rachel's talking about when we start in elementary school, and they're doing it year after year. It's just one of those things that takes the fear out of it. It takes it, I'm not going to do it right. All those things we know that people won't do CPR because of, they can do chest compressions only. You don't have to give them out the mouth. And they know that, and they've learned that from age 5, 6, 7 years old until they graduate from school. So if they see somebody go down, it's just part of what they do. They're going to save a life. Right.
Well, hopefully, I know what you two have been doing, Richard, for a long time. Rachel, for you and your nursing career, and now as a mom of a CPVT daughter, you have saved lives. And so on behalf of the SADS Foundation, thanks for all that each of you do. We've come to the top of the hour already, amazingly. And I hope those out there in SADS Facebook Live land who've joined us live will share it with your friends. Share some of the old ones. We've had all 96,000 views, and let's go over 100,000. And I do have something for your Bella, Rachel. This is my Bella.
Oh my goodness, how cute.
So when I think of your daughter, it makes me think of my Bella. And those who've been joining us know what else I like to show in closing, because I got a surprise yesterday. My daughter-in-law and granddaughter showed up, and so I got to see my granddaughter, Jaden, this morning before I left for work. And so life is good. For all of you out there, have a wonderful Labor Day weekend. Stay safe out there. If you gather, be really smart on how you're gathering over Labor Day weekend. Stay corona-free for as long as we all possibly can, but live life large as we all figure out coexisting with this thing called SARS-CoV-2. Do your part, SADS families, to check on your school. Is it SADS safe? Do they have the checklist? Do they even know what that means? But in a way that doesn't bring fear about your child. It just brings awareness for all people who might enter that school building at any point in time. So until next week, have a wonderful week. We'll see you back next week on September 11th. Those in the United States know that 911 is tragically a very important day. So we will have a program next week, and until then, be well, everyone, and refuse to fear. Take care.
Thank you.